So I'd like to do for the next 2 or 3 minutes is introduce you to the table of contents and the structure of Healing America's narratives. We've given you some background already in previous conversations about the language used in the book and the general concepts presented at the beginning of it. So I'm just going to share the screen here so you can both see and hear as I present here. So the table of contents is set up in the following ways. The first part of the book just introduces the idea of the cultural givens and shadow, as we've spoken about already. You can see chapter 1 is cultural givens and the view from here. Chapter 2 is a brief overview of shadow. We'll get really clear on what we mean by the word, by the concept of shadow, what we don't mean. Part 2 of the book is the evil out there, which is a somewhat satirical subheader, because that's what shadow sees. You know, I haven't done anything wrong. All of the problems are out there somewhere. So what you're looking at are 4 of the 5, core chapters, the histories that the book reviews. The first one, chapter 3, looks at the history of women, entitled Fear of the Feminine and the Subjugation of Women, Getting Their Feet from Off of Our Necks. Chapter 4 looks at Native American history, Trails of Tears and Broken Treaties, the 3rd Colorado Regiment, and the Only Good Indians. Chapter 5 takes a look at African American history, slavery, Jim Crow, civil rights, and everything was going to change now. Chapter 6 looks at the Vietnam War, Dominoes, Defoliation, Death, and Democracy. All right. Chapter 7 looks at the post-9/11 wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, lessons not learned, Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. Chapter 8 expands then, and I basically point to all of the other issues that didn't get their own chapter. So, and that's not all. It includes ambivalence about the planet, culture of violence, lack of health and caring, the othering of other groups based on ethnicity and or sexual orientation and or sexual identity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's I apologize to all of those groups and issues because they didn't get their own chapter there. And I don't say that in a flip way. I chose not to write a 2,000-page book, so I had to make some decisions. Chapter 9, I was entitled Bullied, Woke, and Canceled in the Polarized States of America, and it addresses the bullying inherent in woke and cancel cultures and the critics of woke and cancel cultures. Chapter 10 is entitled The Gift, One Guy's Shadow as an Unconscious Invitation to a Nation to Heal, in which I argue that Donald Trump embodies all 9 of the shadow elements. And then finally, part 3 of the book, Prospects and Possibilities for Healing, chapter 11, So Now What?, where I present some ways into beginning to heal these narratives, both on an individual level and on a collective level. And then chapter 12 is a bookend to chapter 1, where I speak about expanding and integrating the view from here, which was how we began chapter 1. I'll look back at my own cultural givens in the context of asking you as a reader to reflect on your own. And then there are some appendices and about 80 pages of notes and bibliography. So that's the structure of the book. This particular conversation has gone on a little bit longer than the rest of them have. I apologize for that. But I wanted you to have a sense of how the book was structured as we begin to move in the next conversation into that chapter 3 history of women. All right. Thank you again for tuning in.